Okay, so this really cool thing happened this weekend that I just can't wait to share. But I want to also share the story of how all of this came together, because I think there's so much in the story of how things come together. And when we can tune into the heart and the stories of other people, it becomes inspirational and a pathway for our own self-transformation, right? So yeah, this weekend I was doing some work on my website and updating some things and moving things around. Today is the final week. Today is the first of 2 sessions and the final week of healing through the feminine wounds. And the wound that we're working on this week is the father wound, which is all about surrender and security. It's all about healing the parts of ourselves where we're armored and trying to protect ourselves or provide for ourselves in ways that are overcompensating and overdoing. So when we start to heal this wound, the father wound, what we do is we come back to our innate feminine energy and allowance of receivership. We come back into the flow of abundance through the crown and through the root of the body. We attune to the flow of abundance, and we're protected for and provided for by being secure. And what's the other word that I use here? And in surrender, right? So the father wound, the 2 words that I use are surrender and security. These are like the concepts that we're really looking at when healing the father wound. The witch wound is voice and visibility. The sister wound is comparison and competition. And the mother wound is approval and acceptance. So we're in the last week here. It started with the mother wound, of course, sister wound, witch wound, father wound, and the transgression, is that the word? The journey itself, it's very intentional moving through each wound the way that we do, because it builds upon each other. So this wound that we're working on today, that we're finishing this week, tonight is the transmission, and then Thursday is the ceremony, the ritual to actually complete the embodiment work of coming back into that natural state of surrender and allowance and being secure within self. So we can be integrated, we can be softened, we can be in that space of just receiving what is our birthright, being in the beingness as opposed to overdoing, overcompensating, overacting, all of these things. So that being said, this program that I'm completing this week, that we're all completing this week, this is going to be available for women to have as a self-paced program. So I intentionally did it this way. The feminine wounds are things that I work with all of my clients with. There is not a single person that comes into my one-on-one containers where we're not doing this work on one level or another. Most of the time there's an emphasis on one wound more than the other. I'm doing most of my work right now around the witch wound and the father wound with my clients. I think I'm just more DNA programmed and activated to support women on this path. But that being said, like this journey, so 7's a sacred number, right? This is going to be my 7th pre-recorded program that I have available for people to access. So I have these programs that are available for people to come in at self-paced. And of course, it's going to be a lot more affordable, accessible for people to work with me through these pre-recorded programs. So this is for the entrepreneurs, and this is for people that are working with witch wound stuff. I want to tell the story about this, because this weekend when I realized I have 7 programs now that are available for people to purchase and do self-paced, it blew my mind. I don't even know how this happened. I remember when I was working with my first business coach and I saw her product suite and I was like, oh my God, how do you have this many programs? And she's like, I didn't even realize, like I didn't even think of it. And I see that now, and that was a couple years ago. So now I'm in that space where it's like, oh my God, how did this happen? I built a product suite, but it was never my intention. So many of us are on this entrepreneurial journey, and there's so many people, I think a very important part of this journey, a very important part of this process is the experimentation. It's the finding out what works for us. What is our medicine to share? So all of these programs that I created that are pre-recorded, I want to say this first. I did probably 3 years. My business was legal for 3 years, right? Because we all do our work before, most of us are doing our work before we formalize a legal business. So legally, I was working with clients one-on-one for 3 years. Like my business was legally recognized. 3 years I did one-on-one work with clients before I ever did a group program. And this was witch wound stuff. This was all about me wanting to stay intimate and private in my one-on-one. I love going deep with people. I still, it's not that I prefer one-on-one, but there's a depth and an intimacy to one-on-one that really, I become a better practitioner, and my clients get the biggest results that way. So I love that. I love big results. I love deep, intimate work. So I'll always love one-on-one. I'm never not going to do one-on-one ever. Like I don't ever see that ever being an option ever. That being said, there was this moment that happened. Like, I didn't even really know about the online group coaching space. I talk about this in another live. Like, it wasn't, I just knew that traditional therapy wasn't my thing. Social work wasn't my thing. So coaching was the path for me to bring healing arts and this element of like transpersonal psychology and therapy into a service. So that being said, after X amount of years of coaching, I remember this night specifically where I woke up, or maybe I wasn't even fully asleep, but I just got up and I grabbed my notebook and I just journaled 12 modules of a program that was all about sacred feminine embodiment. And this was my very first group program called Sacred Feminine Embodiment Activation. So this program was all about, womb work. The first section was womb attunement. The second section was sexual reclamation. And the third section was sacred sexuality and sex magic. This was my first ever group program. And it took me that long. Now, before I was a practitioner, obviously I was healing myself. And that's what put me on the path, is I was like, ooh, I have a lot to give people because it's overflowing for me. It needs to go somewhere. So that's essentially what happened with this group program. Was after working one-on-one for so long, and I didn't start working in sexuality. I didn't even know that was going to be my thing. I never planned on doing work with sexuality. That was not in the plans at all. But naturally it just evolved and it happened, right? This is how these things work. So after doing years of work around the realms of sacred sexuality, womb work, feminine embodiment, this program, it just channeled through me. And I was like, okay, this is going to be my first group program. I think we had about 12 people in that program, but here's the thing. I refused to record the program. I refused to have this program recorded. So instead, and this is like kind of crazy, if someone missed a call, I would go one-on-one with them and get on a call with them and catch them up on what we did. I had slides for the program as well. So it was like, here's your slides. We'll talk about it. We'll integrate it this way. I'll catch you up and we'll jump back in. I would do anything I could to not be on video, especially live video. It really, like the witch wound in me was so alive, and being in a group was the edge enough. That was my big edge. Hitting record, it was just not going to happen for that first group. So that was my very first group program. After that, I believe my second program that I ever did in a group, I'm almost positive this was my second program, was the Intimacy Template Reset program. So this you can buy now, because this was the first program that I ever recorded. So I met that new edge. I met the new edge of, I'm going to go live. I'm going to bring these sacred sexuality teachings, these deep healing program practices online, record it, and have it accessible for people to join after. And this was a big edge. And the edge here was, I evolve very fast. I'm going to be a different person in 3 months. What if the version of me in this video, I don't want people to see? What if I only want the newer version, people to see that version? So there was a hesitance that I had on that program, on any recorded program, But either way, I showed up, I met the edge, and I recorded it. This was the only time I ever didn't record one session, so I had to go back and re-record it. And I learned that lesson on my first program, so I'm never going to need to learn that lesson again. I have Post-its all over my desk space that say hit record. Lesson learned, but that was part of the journey. But this program, Intimacy Template Reset program, is one of the ways that you can absorb this medicine in your own time for a much more accessible, affordable cost. So this program, what we did is we looked at the feminine energy centers, the throat, the heart, the womb, and the yoni, and did the work to de-armor and deprogram cellular memory, ancestral memory, and certain subconscious imprints that have us acting in the same patterns when it comes to intimacy and lovers, romantic attraction, all of the things. Because here's the thing, when we have sex with a person, even if we hug them, as a woman or as someone with a yoni, our cervix becomes a record keeper. So every person that penetrates us, is that imprint is left in our body. And it is said that these memories are stored, the imprint of the person that we make love to or have sex with, or unfortunately if our body is non-consensual, right? No matter what it is, the imprints of the person that even come into our heart field, this arc line that runs nipple to nipple, the imprints of our past lovers can stay within our energetic field, it is said, for 7 years. Now, there's a lot of nuance to this, because there's definitely patterns we can take with us for a lifetime, and there's definitely ways that we can do the clearing work to release this sooner. So this program, the Intimacy Template Reset program, was developed because I had a set of practices that I was doing since like 2015. So 2015 was the first year I took a conscious vow of celibacy. I took a 12-month vow of celibacy that ended up being 15 months. This was one of the biggest game changers in all of my sexual healing, was to take a year off from all intercourse and release everything from my body. So when I did this work, I started to develop these other practices that supported me in keeping my energetic field clean, especially when I started dating and having more intimate connections with people again after this. It was very important, now that I spent a year cleaning and detoxing my body and my field, that I had the practices in place to keep coming back to sovereignty, to keep coming back to like my pure energetic space. So this program is a 44-day intensive program. There's 7 modules in it. There's 7 practices in it to clear out the centers that keep these imprints, to open the throat, soften the throat, open the heart, soften the throat, the heart, the womb, the cervix, the yoni, all of it. Like, all of this work is to deeply keep the body clear. So if you're someone who has those patterns, or you see yourself having patterns, or you feel your energy is like still imprinted, because we can feel it. We can feel the imprints of our past lovers in our field. This is the program to do the deep work to come back into sovereignty. And this isn't just about, a lot of people came into this program because they want to attract their soulmate. They want to attract their life partner. So there is this, there is that. But it's also important to understand that when other people's energy is in our field, it is going to impact, may I say even distort, what it is we're trying to create. Because our sexual energy centers are our creative centers. Our creative energy comes from sexual energy. So it's important to be in integrity and embodied in the clarity of our soul's essence, our soul's radiance, especially when it comes to manifestation, creation, attracting in what we're desiring to attract in. Whether it's a partner, whether it's money, whether it's, whatever it is we're attracting in, the clarity and the purity of our sexual energy and our relationship with our sovereign embodiment is most important. So the Intimacy Template Reset Program is one of the ways that you can work with me, pre-recorded, self-paced, through 7 deep modules and practices. Almost all of my programs are practice-based. When we go through them, I'll tell you if one isn't. So yeah, so the first one that I ever recorded is the Intimacy Template Reset Program. So this is available. The cost right now is $555. I ran it for $777. So this is like solid. I want this to be accessible, because the work in here is, worth exceptionally more. But I'm not putting this out there for just like high ticket people. Like, that's not the point. All women need this work. All women need accessibility to this work. So yeah, it's a $555 program that honestly could be valued at like $3,000. The practices are fucking deep. They're fucking deep. It's a no joke program. Like, you have to be all in and committed to this work, and it will work, but you have to be committed to the 44 days of this process. It's a 44-day, there's a 44-day practice, and then there's other practices on top of the original 44-day practice. So if you're interested in that, I'll link it in the comments. Okay. So that was my first program that I pre-recorded myself through. From there, the next thing that I recorded was, I'm assuming it was going to be the Shakti Embodied collection. So originally this was going to be a membership, but it ended up being a 6-part series. And this is all about healing, like the beginning of sacred sexuality, and healing certain sexual traumas, certain sexual imprints, coming back to feeling safe in the body. So I love this program. It's not just, I want to say it's like a great beginner's program, because it absolutely is. We talk about the fundamentals of why we need pleasure, why pleasure is nervous system work, why it's not something that's like, pleasure isn't frivolous. It's actually a part of our vitality, why pleasure is so important. Like, we get to the root of what pleasure is, and then we introduce this practice called the mindful erotic practice, which is a staple in all of my work. So this practice is the core essence of the Shakti Embodied collection. It was the Shakti Embodied Collective when it was going to be a membership, but then it became a 6-module, 3-part collection. So every part, the first transmission is all about the mindful erotic practice. It's all about understanding pleasure, why our nervous system needs pleasure, and coming back to that reprogramming of sovereignty in the body. The second session is all about finding safety in our pleasure. So many of us have gone through this path of feeling unsafe being in our sensuality, or not understanding where to have boundaries. How do we show up in our radiance without having unsolicited attention, right? So this is why it really is, this program is geared around sexual healing, because these are really important things that we look at on our journey, because the subconscious imprints and the ways that we block our own radiance, that's in our cells. That's in our cells. And it's through this practice, the mindful erotic practice, that we actually get to start to unpack and unwind all of these programmings that keep us from feeling safe in our sexuality, or in our sexual power, in our sensual power. And again, sexual energy is creative energy. So especially if we're on the entrepreneurial path, like, this is a core foundation of the work. And then the third section is all about working with longing and desire and pleasure as magnetism. It's all about sex magic, in the sense of our pleasure is our manifestation energy. And this isn't just like orgasm until you get what you want. It's not one of those things. It's like, we go deep. Like, my work is very deep. It's not surface level, right? Like, I really do. I'm programmed to speak to healing through trauma. Even when I'm speaking to concepts like abundance, my embodiment frequency is always going to be hitting the deepest parts of self. There is no bypass in my work, ever, ever, ever. So yes, we're talking about desire and pleasure and longing coming as a form, or using as a form for manifestation, but it's not through bypass, which a lot of these programs do talk about. It really is integrated. So this is 3 sections, 3 transmissions, and even the 2 transmissions, the safety and pleasure and the desire, pleasure, magnetism, those also have like a guided embodied practice within them. So you can get the felt sense of, what does it feel like to be in healthy relationships with my sexual energy, and where my boundaries are? What does it feel like for me to be in my radiance and have the power to zip up my radiance if some energy is coming towards me that I don't want to receive? So this is really good practice work. But on top of the practices that are in the transmission, there's also a mindful erotic practice, 45-minute to hour-long practice that accompanies each of the transmissions, where we get into the embodiment work, the more esoteric and mystical aspects of sacred sexuality. So that is the Shakti Embodied collection. Right now, it is $222 for the six sessions, 3 transmissions, 3 practices, really deep fundamental work, especially for people on the path of sacred sexuality. This is a practice that no matter where you are on your journey, you can always go deeper. No matter if you've been on this path for 10 years or you're brand new to it, these transmissions will hit you where you are at. They will meet you where you are at. And this practice will deepen your relationship with your body. There's always a layer deeper. There's always a level deeper. There's always more space to go in. Always. Okay. So that is the second program that I recorded. And again, the intention for that was for it to be a membership, and it ended up being this really beautiful collection. That's a great resource for people who are healing their relationship with their sexuality. The third program I recorded, and this one was a masterpiece. This was the first program that I really felt the most vulnerable. This program, I felt, it was really, so it's all about the alchemy of heartbreak. The program is called HeartBreak Breakthrough. And this program, I released it. It was, Troy and I had broken up at the time that my grandmother died. So my grandmother had just died. Troy and I had broken up, and I had just had to let go of my 9-month road trip to come back home to be in the grieving process. There was a lot of energy around me, around this heartbreak energy, that brought up my own internal practices and processes with grief. And since I was in them, I was like, I need to share these with people, because I forget that not everyone has these resources. So at the beginning, the very, very first session, I talk about my journey and my deepest loss, the loss of my dog. And I know some people don't understand the loss of our furry friends. Other people do. But the loss, it was a traumatic loss. The circumstance in which she died was extraordinarily traumatic. And that happened when I was 21. And even though I had other losses before that, this one set me up to hold grief and understand grief at a whole different frequency. So grief is something that I've supported countless hundreds of people with, specifically working around this energy of existential grief even. So HeartBreak Breakthrough was this 3-day transmission where I brought forward the power of transmuting heartbreak or alchemizing heartbreak to come back into our, the evolution of our soul, how heartbreak is the gatekeeper for our own evolution. So, oh my gosh, I haven't tapped into this program in a long time, but every session, there were 3 sessions, every session also had a practice, because I'm all about the embodied. I want to give people a felt sense of this work. So this program, HeartBreak Breakthrough, was for people that had gone through breakups, like in their relationships. It's for people who had lost someone, whether it be, a parent or a friend that died, or, a lot of women that took this class did this because they've had abortions or miscarriages. And then the third aspect, this is for HeartBreak Breakthrough, was for loss of identity of self. Because that's another aspect that we don't really talk much about in our culture, but there's this grieving aspect when we transform or when we become a new person, to integrate, to alchemize the loss of a past version of ourselves. So Heartbreak Breakthrough is all about working with the heart field and this energy of grief, which can be overwhelming, understanding what grief is, understanding how to move with grief and use it to serve us, or surrender into it so we allow it to serve us for the way that it is designed to serve us. It's so powerful. This program is so powerful. The frequency that I'm embodied in as I deliver this program, it's beyond divine. It is beyond divine. And that's a big part of what I talk about in this program, is understanding that we're always going to have our human self and our divine self coming together and working together to be in this energy of heartbreak and breakthrough. So it is an alchemical process. So that is the third program that I have pre-recorded and available. I do not know the cost of that one off the top of my head, but that was a big one. So then I had this incredible journey that happened pretty much essentially right after I birthed that program. This huge thing happened, this wild thing happened. And I ended up going to Hawaii. It was only supposed to be for 3 weeks, then 5 weeks, then 2 months, and then 4 months. I ended up being in Hawaii for 4 months, which was this massive initiation for me on the path of sacred wealth. When I came back from Hawaii, this was the transmission that I needed to deliver. So I came back and I gave this 2-day transmission called Sacred Wealth. And what this essentially was I got to the biggest wound that I had, that wasn't just mine, one of the biggest imprints around money and wealth and abundance and prosperity that I was carrying was something that I saw that I had adopted from my teachers and my ancestors and the people that I had learned from and trained from, which wasn't even mine to begin with, and yet it was still in my blood, it's still in my DNA. So I gave this 2-day transmission that is really geared towards spiritual women on this path of sacred service or entrepreneurship. But even if you're not on that path, there is so much money healing work that is encoded in this program, and it's super affordable. It's like $77 for this 2-day transmission, Sacred Wealth. I definitely want to add some modules to it because, I mean, even in the past year, the realms and paradigms that I've touched with money are completely different, but this was really at the base of it. This was the foundation of my money wound healing, that once it was integrated and embodied, I was like, I need to share this with the world. So Sacred Wealth is another way that you can work with me. Again, it's 2 days, there's practices in it, and it's a $77 program. All right, so we have the Intimacy Template Reset program. We have Heartbreak Breakthrough. We have the Shakti Embodied Collection. We have Sacred Wealth. We have Healing Through the Feminine Wounds. That is coming up this week. That is finishing this week. The Conscious Menstruation and Cyclical Alchemy program. Oh my God, are you in there? Have you done it? How have you not done this? Conscious Menstruation and Cyclical Alchemy. So this was the work that birthed my business. This was literally my purpose. My purpose was to come in and deliver this work, all about womb work, and understanding how to come back to cyclical nature. So I did this work one-on-one with clients for many, many years before it got to this point of like, I'm going to consolidate this into 3 days, 6+ hours of deep transmission into the feminine mysteries, and I offered it for free. So this work is posted up in the Diamond Light Temple, where there's going to be more ceremonies and more offerings that are going to continue to be pumped in there, because I want to have this space to give for free, generously, to my community, to the people that desire to be tuned into this frequency. So conscious menstruation was like the first love child of the Diamond Light Temple. It was the place that it needed to go. So these 3 days, these 6.5 hours worth of transmissions are absolutely life-changing. And this is for all people that were born with a womb, with a yoni. If you're post-menopause, it is still relevant. If you're post-menopause, it's still relevant. If you've had a hysterectomy, it is still relevant. No matter where you are in relationship with your womb, this program is relevant, because we are encoded as people born as womb keepers, womb carriers, to be in sync with the natural cycles of nature. So this brings us back to the creation cycle, to understanding the 4 phases in creation. But I give this transmission, again, it's deeply integrated through the realms of the mystery. So this is a place where it's like, the information is very practical, of course, but I'm weaving in the mystical to the practical in a very grounded way. This is a 3-day program that is completely free. My entire heart and soul is poured into this program, and you can access that in the Diamond Light Temple. Okay, so the final way that you can work with me that is pre-recorded, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to save this because I'm actually going to gift it. I'm going to gift this. I'm not even going to sell it. I'm going to gift it to the Diamond Light Temple soon. Not quite yet, but soon. All right. So yeah. So my journey, I came from not wanting to record a single thing, to literally, when people missed a live program with me, jumping on a call and catching them up, to all of a sudden I have 7 programs that are pre-recorded. But here's what changed. Here's the big piece that changed. There was this moment. So when I was in Hawaii, I had barely sold a pre-recorded program. I'd sold a handful of them. I had a literal energetic block between me and selling the pre-recorded programs. And here is why. There was a part of me that was so attached to perfectionism and being my best version of myself, and knowing that I am becoming a better person every single day, that I would completely, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, invalidate past versions of myself. And in that invalidation, I would block past versions of myself from being seen. So it's like, I don't want someone to purchase this program because they're going to get an old version of myself, when the version of myself that I am today is so much better. So here I am in my human mind, and this is what we do, judging what is good, bad, right, and wrong. I was judging my past self as worse than my present self, which was better than. And it just doesn't work like this. It just doesn't work this way. So in Hawaii, when I noticed that I was blocking myself from receiving money from these pre-recorded programs, I understood. There was like a moment that came in. I just had this insight that the people that are meant for these programs are going to be resonant with that past version of me. Of course, there are people that are going to be resonant with that past version of me. Of course there are. And there's going to be people that are a better fit for that version of me, embodied in that frequency and that transmission, to receive the medicine that they're meant to receive. So I put in this affirmation that night, or it was actually that day, and I journaled about it. And I just affirmed to myself that the perfect people who are meant for the past versions of me are going to find my programs and resonate with my medicine. I'm open to that. So I set that intention. That night, I woke up the next morning with 2 sales of my previous programs that were pre-recorded. So I understood there. I was like, oh shit, I've been actually blocking myself because I don't want people to see this past version of me. So that happened. Then this weekend, I'm organizing things, I'm clipping things and doing things. And all of a sudden I look and I'm like finishing up, stuff for the father wound for this week. And I'm like, oh my God, I have 7 pre-recorded programs. I have a product suite, and I never intended to do that. Like, that wasn't an intention. It's something that just happened. It just happened. And in that moment, looking at all of these programs, the Intimacy Template Reset, Sacred Wealth, HeartBreak Breakthrough, Healing Through the Feminine Wounds, there's Shakti Embodied Collection, looking down, like looking at all of these programs that I created, I was so proud. And it's like everyone holds such a different, unique frequency and energy that I'm not attached to being in competition with myself. Oh, this one's better than this one, or this one's better than this one, because I see they are all just different. They are all different parts of myself. They are all different facets of my being that are expressed through different times and different flavors. So something like the Intimacy Template Reset program, it's like I could do that now and it would be a completely different program. My embodiment and understanding of these teachings, of these practices, of the actual transmissions is so different now, but it's not better, it's just different. So I'm completely obsessed with these programs that I've created. I see what's really cool now is I see me through all of them through time, whereas before there was like, I had someone buy one of the programs recently, and she sent me a message and she was like, oh my God, you're such like a baby. Like it's so different from who you are today, but it's still just as strong. And there's still like the mannerisms that I still do. So it's really interesting. It's really interesting to see the threads, the consistent threads of like my soul through these different programs through time. And I'm at this point now because I avoided recording for so long that just in the past couple of years of doing these recorded programs, the evolution one is obvious, but who I am is even more obvious. Like to witness and see the consistencies, like who I am that remains the same through these programs through time. That is magic and medicine in itself. So yeah, so I am completely free and open for all of these past versions of me to be seen and received. And I see the medicine that's in them, even though, of course, my work is evolving and deepening all of the time. The work that I've done in the past couple of years that's been so focused on, say, money wound healing. And there's a program that I'm going to be coming up with for that specifically, because it's been who I am for the past couple of years, has been doing this deep work around sacred service, entrepreneurship, and money wound healing to come into the prosperous priestess path, right? For those of you that have done that program with me. So yeah, like the past couple of years of being so focused on that and not so focused on producing more of the sexuality programs, I have these sexuality programs that have been pre-recorded that are available for people to tap into. So it's there, and I feel so resourced. My clients are so resourced. Like I'm constantly gifting my one-on-one clients like modules from various programs. I have resources because all of these facets of me exist recorded in the internet. It's like, oh, here's a version, 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 here's a version. And I will continue to evolve in all of the facets of all of this work. So it's just, I feel so abundant. I'm very proud. I'm a proud mama of all my little babies, all 7 of my babies that are sitting out on the internet. And yeah, I have some really cool ideas. Of course, I'm going to do some funnel conversions because like that's what you do with pre-recorded stuff. But there's also some clips from some group programs that aren't available as pre-recorded classes that I'm going to start clipping and making little bundles with. And that's really exciting. Yeah. So all of that. And here's to say that if you've done any of these programs, and you're on this path of feminine embodiment, sacred sexuality, sacred wealth, all of these aspects of what it is that I am, what it is that I embody and that I'm so excited to share about and gift, right? There is a 3-month integration group coaching container that starts in September, on September 20th, called Embodied. And this is the space where there's not a lot of new information because I want this to be the focal chamber, the alchemical chamber for integration. So there's so many resources, like I said, like the conscious menstruation program alone could be integrated. I mean, I worked one-on-one with conscious menstruation with my clients for 3-month intervals. That was all we would focus on for 3 months, and it changed people's lives. So even if you haven't done any of the other programs and you have access to the conscious menstruation and you're starting to speak my language and you're like, yes, I want this, or you've already been there and you're already speaking the language and you're like, yes, I want to deepen. This is not a space to take in new information. This is a space for group coaching and integration. This is where we become embodied. This is where we drop out of the mind, come into the body, and start walking what it is that we've been absorbing. And this is the most important piece, right? Because we're not meant to just have all of this information. It's the 4 eyes, right? It's like We're inspired, we take in the information, we become integrated in the embodiment, and then we innovate, and then we make it ours, and then it becomes our path to service. But the inspiration, the information, the integration, all of these steps come first, and we have to get all of that information from the mind down into the body. So Embodied is a 3-month container, an integration portal that starts on September 20th, 12 sessions where we go in and we actually do this deep, deep integration work. So that program, that container is $1,555, $1,555, or $555 a month. And there is probably going to be a special offer I have with that. I need to organize a couple details. So stay tuned. If you're interested in it, send me a message. I'm going to tell you some details, and I might tell you the secret thing that might be coming up. Okay. So these are 7 ways that you can work with me. Oh my God, I'm so proud. And yeah, if you're on the entrepreneurial path and a product suite or something is something that you desire to have, don't force it. Do not force it, because you're going to have quality that is not going to, when we're doing something with the expectation, right? If we're producing something with an ulterior motive, it's going to dilute what it is that we're actually creating. So being in the pureness, the integrity of our offers is the most important thing. And I know, I remember seeing, my coach was Amy Rushworth, and I saw her product suite, and I was like, oh my God, how did you do all this? And I never once was I need a product suite. That was not my thing. It was overwhelming to think of. And then it was I woke up this weekend and I saw holy fuck, I have a product suite. That just happened. So I want to say that. I want to say that for the encouragement that we don't have to force things. We don't have to try to make ourselves do things. It just happens from our beingness. And it takes time, sure, but it will just happen, and effortlessly and easily and all of the things. Whew. Okay. 3:33, close, 3:32, almost 3:33. Sending you all so much love, healing the father wound tonight. Really excited to dive into that. And yeah, I will see you all tomorrow.